Alright guys, what's going on? It's Tiz back for another video. And last time I talked about what I thought of volume versus value and what I call subtraction by addition, which is talking about how players providing more production isn't necessarily providing more value, even though it looks like it on a surface level. And I want to talk about the flip side of that today, something that I'm calling bokeh. Now, I don't know how many people here, are in that Venn diagram of people who care about cameras and basketball. But in the camera world, there's something called bokeh, which is basically, if you look behind me, you see everything's kind of like blurred out and out of focus. That's a phenomenon called bokeh. And realistically, you pay a lot for that shit. In modern cameras, right, like most lenses that you get are going to be sharp. Like you see the part that you're supposed to see is going to be sharp. But a lot of what you pay for your lenses is going to be based in how much that, how good that looks. And you might be like, what's this guy on? Good question. This right here is a lens 24 to 70 f4 lens. Even that, like you see, like how I'm fading out, like you pay for that shit. This right here, also a 24 to 70 lens, meaning it takes the same frame in your pictures, right? It's the same thing basically, but this cost about 2.5 times as much as this guy. Basically because it gives you better looks outside of the frame of what you're trying to have in focus. Why are you saying this? What difference does it make? What does that have to do with basketball? Honestly, very little, but this is how my brain works, right? Like, I pick from different things that I'm into, different things that I understand, and I try to allow it to tap into other things that I care about in ways that make sense. So let's talk about it, right? If the last time I'm telling you about people who are doing too much, in a sense, this is the exact opposite. I feel like one of the most overlooked ways that players provide value right now is in the out of focus bits of basketball, right? The difference between a Kyrie Irving, who I kind of trashed last time, and Steph Curry, the difference between Kyrie and Steph is night and day when you look at value that they bring to the game and how they actually bring that value. Right now, like the in focus bits, your points, your assists, your rebounds, things like that, they're kind of similar players. I mean, Steph still outproduces him, generally speaking. But when they go head to head, maybe it's not the same way, and maybe Kyrie gets the nod when it comes to the counting stats, the production that jumps out at you. But I think where Steph definitely separates himself is in these ways that I don't feel like people understand. Or if they understand it, they don't articulate it, right? Like when you look at the analysts on TV, when you read articles or whatever the case, like people don't talk about this, and I think that this is way more important in today's NBA, especially when you have all these super teams and stars teaming up. It's important that players are doing things outside of this bit and into that bit. And doing things that aren't necessarily showing up. And I think that Steph is one of the greatest of all time when it comes to that. So I have a case. I've come to believe this recently that I think that Steph Curry is on the short list for the greatest facilitators of all time. Now, obviously, like when you look at his stats, he averages like 5, 6 assists, and you're like, what are you talking about? If you're looking at assists to determine who the best facilitators are in 2019, you're doing it wrong. They used to be, again, like Stockton Malone, you had Magic Johnson, even Mark Jackson, right? Where they had the ball, they ran the offense, they picked the spots, they made the pass, they got the assist. In 2019, I feel like if you're playing that way, you're not actually running a good offense. Unless you're LeBron James and you've got the combination of height and passing and shooters around you, which he doesn't have the shooters anymore, but hopefully he'll get that next year. Unless you're LeBron James and you're doing that, chances are, or James Harden does it well too. Unless you're one of these players, chances are that's just not the best way for you to run your offense. And if you look at the players at the top of the league and the teams at the actual top of the league, and fucking, I'll make a prediction right now. I'm picking the Bucks to win the ring this year, but more than likely the two teams that are going to be in the championship are Golden State and Milwaukee, as far as I can tell. Toronto might beat Milwaukee, Portland might beat Golden State, but those are my picks. And whether they make it to the finals or not, I'm still making the same point. So, for me, these are the teams that exhibit the most organic involvement for their players, right? So on the one hand, you have James Harden, who dominates the ball, who dominates the offense, and even when he's not shooting, he's passing to get the assist, and the usage numbers are off the charts, and this is just how they operate. And you look on the flip side, and you see a team like Golden State, you see a team like Milwaukee. Obviously, Giannis runs the show in Milwaukee, but at the same time, there's plenty of space there, right? Like there's plenty of space outside of the main focus, which is Giannis. There's plenty of space outside of that for other players to operate. There's plenty of space for Brogdon to operate. There's plenty of space for Bledsoe, plenty of space for Middleton. Brook Lopez is adding all sorts of new stuff to his game. He's hitting step back threes now. If your center is shooting step back threes, and 2 years ago they weren't shooting threes at all, that's probably because they're playing within a system that gives that guy agency, right? And when we're talking about value versus volume, there's a specific skill that comes in measuring a player's own production versus measuring the cost of that production and how to maximize controlling the game versus over controlling and staying out of the way of your teammates for their best interest. And when you look at a guy like Giannis, I think that he exemplifies that at a super high level, and Steph Curry exemplifies that at the highest level. I don't think there's a player playing today, definitely not, and maybe not a player of all time, that's been able to do as much with the ball while doing as much without the ball. The Warriors, since Curry came there, obviously have had, the highest passing offense in the league. And even though Steph Curry may not pick up the assist, through the combination of, most importantly, his just sheer willingness to pass the ball and willingness to have his teammates have the ball and actually do things with it, right, on their own, of their own volition, with their own agency. That's the most important thing. B is his insane gravity. Obviously, when he steps on the court and he steps past half court, he warps the defense, right? Not just his man. It's his man, the eyes of the four other men, maybe people cheating, maybe people hedging, which opens up all sorts of stuff for all of his teammates. So there's that. Then you have to say he's obviously a good passer also. He's not a great passer. He's not, an amazing passer, but he's a good passer. So when you have the gravity, when you have the willingness, when you have the passing, it makes it so that your offense is it's juiced up. It's greased up. Right? There's a reason why Golden State's offense is consistently at the top of the league. And it's not just the fact that they have unfair players. I mean, they do have unfair players. But it's not just that. Because, one thing that you notice in NBA history, and people discount this every single year, there's always some scenario, some team, some player where people just take it as gospel that good players play well together. Despite, if you look at NBA history, that almost never happens. When good players join up together, the times when that actually works seamlessly, smoothly, versus the times when that works either with major hiccups or not at all, it really tends to really not work as much as people think it's supposed to work, because it's not easy. It's not easy to produce at a high level while still leaving space for your teammates to produce at a high level. And Steph Curry does this, I think, better than anyone ever, and definitely better than anyone now. Now, what's also unfair about it is I think that Kevin Durant is up there too on this same level. Now, these playoffs have seen him taking a lot more control in ways that it may or may not be good for the team. I'm not really sure. Obviously, it's worked to the point where they've been able to win games with him. But, they pass less as a team. Klay obviously takes a huge haircut. Steph's production goes down. Draymond's production goes down. Durant defends at a high level, so, that's a part of it too. But the production goes down for everyone else on the team for Durant's production to be high. And I think that, it's easy to look at, 35, 40 points a game and say, wow, that's what he's adding. And yeah, that is what he's adding. But he's also subtracting when he plays like that. So it's not like you just add 45 points. You're adding 45, but you're taking 15 from Klay. You're taking 12 from Curry. You're taking 8 from Draymond or whatever the case. and there's just less passing, there's less organic involvement. So, McKinney or Looney or whoever else, may not be getting those same touches and those same opportunities with the ball, and that all has an effect. And now we see. Now I'm not going to make some huge claim because there's only one game, but once Durant went out, you see Golden State was able to flip back into the old mode of play that they had, where it's more about Steph Curry and Steph Curry running pick and roll, getting trapped, swing it out, and play 4-on-3 down and see what happens. And now you have Andre Iguodala hitting 5 threes in a game, right? Like these things, they exist because Steph says, "All right, I'm just gonna pass out of the trap. That's it." Like I trust my players; they're good, right? But part of the reason why they're good and why they're trusted because they're trusted with those reps over and over and over and over again, right? That's why they're ready when those moments come. That's why their offense is always so juiced. And that's why when Kevin Durant is out, their offense doesn't really take a hit because their players are able to play in ways that, A, it's free and easy when Steph is out there, but it's even freer and easier because he gives people the ball. And that matters. Now, back to Durant, though. Durant has been playing differently in these playoffs, and he won MVP because he did the same thing back in 2014 when Russ went out. If you guys remember, January 2014, he went off for like 40 points over and over and over again by being a ball-dominant, high-usage player, which is something he doesn't generally do. And, while I don't fault him for that, that's what they needed at the time, and I think it was the right play, and I think when he does it, even now, it's the right play in moments. I find it really, really striking that these are the only times when people recognize Kevin Durant as the best player in the world. Only when he decides to really put his stamp on the game in super obvious ways do we say, "Oh, wait a minute, this guy's the best." No, he's the best when he's not doing that too. He's the best when he gets you 28 points on 13 shots. He's the best then too, right? Like, and not just then, like also, like that's probably when he's even better. When he's using a very low percentage of possessions, giving you super high production and juicing your offense for your other teammates when you're out there, just being a decoy, right? Like there's value in that I think oftentimes outweighs the value of personal production, right? Like the bucket that he gets is 2 points. The bucket that he allows someone else to get is the same 2 points. Or maybe not. I mean, they're not as efficient. So, 1.8 points, if you run it out or whatever. But it's higher engagement for that teammate. It's agency for that teammate. And so, when the playoffs come and Kevin Durant gets hurt, these guys are ready. What would happen if James Harden got hurt? Rockets are done, right? They're done. Like if Russell Westbrook is hurt, like what are the Thunder going to do? Their players become underutilized, and then they just become bad, right? Like they're not ready for these moments because they're not given those moments. So when Kevin Durant takes 12 shots when he could realistically take 30, that's 28 shots that go to other players. They're feeling involved, and it's not just a feeling, right? Like when you're actually doing things on an NBA court, you become better at doing those things, and that's value, right? To say that like it's not value because it's not what they're personally doing, I think is missing the point. And I think that we've gotten too much into rewarding players with personal accolades for hijacking their teams. That's what I think, and I think that I think it's kind of ludicrous that we keep giving MVPs to players that we know aren't the best in the league, right? Like you put up the numbers because you had the opportunity, meaning like your coach, your system, whatever said that hey, you can take a bunch of shots, you can dominate the ball, right? And so we say that that's more valuable than the guys who don't do that, but the guys who don't do that are the ones who keep winning, and the guys who don't do that are the guys that we all know are better. Like, no one actually thinks that James Harden is a better basketball player than Kevin Durant. No one thinks that. When Russell Westbrook winning MVPs, like, no one actually thought he was the best player in the league. No one really thought that, right? And I know some of you guys think he's better than Steph, but you're crazy. He's not. Like, there's a reason why certain players keep winning. There's a reason why Steph Curry is able to win when Kevin Durant sits and James Harden can't get it done. And I don't even want to hate on James like that because I think he played well, and I think it's trash how like anytime anyone loses, we got to pretend they were garbage. Like, nah. But Steph wins, right? When he's in these positions, he wins, and I think that even when you look at it, they're like, oh, the narrative around the closeout game between the Warriors and the Rockets was, oh, Steph didn't score in the first half, and they still weren't able to get it done. No, it's not like they still weren't able to get it done. Steph not scoring in the first half, it's not ideal. It's not what you want, but it's not catastrophic because it's part of his game to just allow other people to do stuff. It's not a coincidence that Steph didn't score in the first half and Clay went for 21. Like those two things aren't unrelated. And I'm not saying it's a strong causation like because Steph didn't score that means that Clay got to score. But Steph didn't score in part because he didn't take that many shots. Now some of that was foul trouble, but others another part of that was just he gave the ball up, and other people did stuff with the ball, and that's fucking fine, right? And to go back to Harden, that's what happening in Game 4 down the stretch, or Game 5 down the stretch, where he didn't score, but his team did. He gave people the ball, and that was great, right? And for some reason we see that as him undercutting his value as opposed to adding to his value by doing things that make his team better. And I get it, right? Like when you start talking about like the empty spaces, it's impossible to really break that down and really talk about directly how that leads to higher production for your team. It's impossible to do that, at least with today's tools. It's impossible to do that. But it also seems to be pretty obvious that that's what's happening, right? Like these players that allow their teammates to do things, their teammates produce and their teams win. And it's not just because these players are somehow better when they play. No, like the players are better when they play with Steph because Steph gives them the advantages through gravity and through agency. Agency matters. Like giving your team agency matters. And when you have certain players that are on the other side of that, who do the opposite of that on and off the court, and they get bounced, right? And then you got to worry about who's coming back next year and what's going on with the locker room, and we're not having fun. And maybe there's something to be said for that. So that's it. That's my little rant on volume versus value. I think that, as NBA fans, like there's something to think about in what we actually value for our players, what we think actually wins. Because at the end of the day, like that's what matters, like winning, right? It's not about what looks cool or what, like what shows up on the score sheet. It's what actually wins the game. And I think that there's a lot of winning that takes place in these empty spaces, in these background blurred out of focus bits, and not just here in the parts that are in focus. Like, comment, subscribe. I don't know what's coming next, but I'm gonna come up with something. Maybe a series breakdown for how I see it happening. Maybe keep those going during a series. Maybe do like a recap. I don't exactly know. But comment, like I said, let me know what you guys want to see. Let me know what you guys think. If you think I'm crazy, if you think I'm stupid, if you think I'm on point, let me know. I'm out.